Are live. What is going on, Justin? We are with Justin Decloux from Gold Ninja Video. He is meeting us from Toronto, Canada. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on today.
Happily. Just so you're aware, you can see some of the comments on your side there if you've got the live comments up. And I have a handful of releases that we are going to be talking about from Gold Ninja Video. Down in the description of the video below, there's a link to their Indiegogo. They have a current fundraiser going, and it is for 3 titles that you're trying to get remastered. Is that correct?
That is correct. Well, now that we've passed the goal that I had, it's going to be more titles. So I'm very excited about that, including some Bruceploitation that's never had a widescreen or high definition transfer that I have on the docket.
That is what I love to hear. And speaking of that, one of the definitive titles, everybody should be going and grabbing Jackie'sploitation. This is still in stock, correct?
Yep. It is. I made it more than it usually is just because I had done like really low print runs on other 3-disc set that I had done. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like every disc of those I make sure is as good as a single disc release. Like I have a rule for discs, which is commentary, booklet, and 2 video featurettes, 1 hidden feature, 1 bonus feature. Every disc has to have that.
And these are all, just so everybody's aware, hand-numbered, I'm assuming, by yourself.
Yes, by me. Nobody else.
Congratulations on those writing cramps.
Thank you.
I guarantee that they've happened.
Oh, I cut them too. I cut the covers as well. So that's the most annoying part.
And see, that's amazing. We're definitely going to get into that. I have currently 5 releases with more on the way from you guys. And I've loved every single thing I've seen. For the uninitiated that have not currently had a release from Gold Ninja Video, can you explain just what the credo is behind the actual company and what each release strives to be?
So Gold Ninja Video was something that came out of a podcast that I co-host with Will Sloan, and we're both physical media addicts. I feel like if you're a cinephile at a certain point, like you love Blu-rays and DVDs because it's like a door into the context of movies that you love. And we, especially on the podcast, love talking about like kind of stuff that's fallen between the cracks or has been dismissed. And we have a great love for bargain bin releases. They don't really exist anymore due to the lack of like physical presence of DVDs and Blu-rays, but like stuff you find in gas stations and Walmarts, and it would be all like gray market public domain films, mostly like martial arts stuff like that Jackie'sploitation set is made up of films that you would find there. And so we decided that we were gonna like do a test run on a Blu-ray where we would take a movie that you would assume to find in those bargain bins. And the one thing that always kept us from doing Blu-ray stuff is that we can't afford to do new transfers. Unfortunately, that's very expensive. So basically the way that we went into it was that I decided, all right, we're going to be upfront about this is not going to be a great transfer. It'll be the best that we can find, but what you're buying the disc for is for the special features. And they would be all newly produced just for the disc.
And if I am mistaken here, please correct me, but you are actually involved in most discs with special features, correct? Usually with commentaries or
I'm involved in all of them. There's going to be me as a talking head doing introductions. I bring in a whole bunch of other friends to like do commentaries with me. I really don't like doing them by myself. I've only done it when it's like I don't know someone who's going to talk about the subject, like Peplum, or when I did Pearl Chang, I did it by myself, and the commentary on that is mostly a history lesson on wuxia films. And like sometimes when I have friends, I tell them like, listen, like this is a Taiwanese action movie, like I have biographical information to talk about the filmmakers, but feel free to go into tangent or podcast territory, because like that's what people want. They want like a conversation, they'll learn stuff, but like I most of the time don't have contact with any of these filmmakers. So the way that I approach these special features is mostly like, okay, I'm opening the door to this either filmmaker, this actor, this director, this genre, and I'll give you like favorite films, directions to go, and it's kind of like a guide or a mixtape for you to like go and then explore off on your own.
We actually, me and a friend of mine just had a conversation about that exact thing. Commentaries, it seems there's 2 extreme ends of a spectrum. There's either the overtly scholarly commentary. Yep, and then that's all they do. We're going to talk about history, and you might fall asleep 3 or 4 times. And then there's the other side. It'll be essentially riff tracks. And
Ooh,
what
I
I
wouldn't
think,
say riff tracks. I mean, that's the extreme, I would say.
the extreme. And what I think most people need to aim for is that direct middle.
Mm-hmm.
We want fun, we want hangout, but man, that commentary where you can sneak in some of that bio data is great.
You got to be careful, that it's not like, all right, let me list all of the films they were in, because like that information is just like whew, just goes right above your head. So you want to kind of like mention films and then maybe like focus on one, and you can use that as a jumping off point. That's, I think, the most interesting commentaries that I listen to. So
I watched one recently that I can't remember who it is, but it was a director that, of course, by now he's about 75, 76, and all it was, oh yeah, I remember filming this. Oh yeah, this scene. Yeah, I saw her. Yeah, that's right. And it's like, okay, you paid him to have that commentary. I get it, but okay. So I am curious, what has been the one title that you've put out that made you really want to put out some of this on physical media?
Oh, all of them. Basically, every release is like, no one's going to release this except for me. No one's going to give this special edition. I love tackling like a certain subject. Like basically the way that I do releases is it started off as like, it was going to be like important cinema club bargain bin classics. And then it moved into kind of poverty row-ish black and white stuff that you would see in syndication all the time in like, the 50s, 60s, 70s. And then I got the opportunity to do indie filmmakers where it started with, because I knew the guy who made Flesh Freaks.
One.
Yeah, Unlucky Stars. And I'll get to how I got that one in a second. I knew the guy who did Flesh Freaks because he acted in one of my movies. And I asked him like, hey, would you let me put it out on Blu-ray if you if you own the rights? And he's like, yeah, sure. And that was like the first indie one that I did. And after that, it was Matt Farley. I reached out and said, hey, can I put Local Legends out on Blu-ray? And he's like, sure. And I love doing that. Like, just like, these are movies I like. I wouldn't release them if I didn't. And just being able to get context, special features and stuff like that. The new one that just, it hasn't shipped yet. It's going to start shipping tomorrow. Dinosaurs in a Mining Facility. Not only is the movie amazing, the director made a 2.5-hour documentary about the movie that has never been anywhere else. It is so slickly produced as well. He worked on it for 6 months, and it's only on the disc as well. So, and
that's the thing. There's so many companies that are putting out stuff like this that you will literally never see anywhere else. And supporting a company like yours, most of your releases, I believe, like $10 or $12, right?
Yeah, I believe it's $12 now because I redid the calculations. I'm like, I've been charging $10 for too long based on how much it costs to make all of this stuff. And the director's cult releases, the ones I work directly with the director, are $15. And that's because I give 50% of the profit to them. So that's why it's a little bit more expensive. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm sure they appreciate that. And a lot of companies don't do that. So
no, the story I always hear is that companies don't pay them anything ever. Every filmmaker I've released, that's what they've always heard. And I mean, they're really nice. The filmmakers I've worked with, that they're like, I can't believe somebody likes our movie enough to do this. Like, and some of them I've just cold called, like the Sweet and Vicious Beauty that you held up. I just watched it on Amazon Prime because I looked up the filmmaker because I knew him from when I was a very young film critic. He choreographed a film called Lethal Force. And I was like, I wonder what he's been up to lately. And I saw that on Prime, watched it, and I was like, I'm just going to send him an email through Facebook. And he's like, oh, okay. And it was such a great collaboration. There's not only a film that was never released on there called The Fifth City, there's a secret feature on that disc that's a Super 8 black and white film that he made. That's like a basket case, but with martial arts. He did in the late 90s. That's never been released either, called Bird Heart Pie. And it was only after we did all the special features, I was like, can I put this stuff out? And he's like, yeah, sure, you can go ahead.
And every single disc, I believe, so far has had an Easter egg, correct?
Yes. They don't all have basically anything that is a not a director's cult will have like a full feature Easter egg. The director's cult, clearly some directors can't be like, yeah, here, have this feature that you can hide that I've never released. But I do try to hide something as an Easter egg every time. Like I was just working on Dinosaurs on a Mining Facility, and I'm like, all right, this is what I'm hiding, which is really cool as the Easter egg on this disc.
That is amazing. And again, for people that don't have these, what's a good one to hold up? So I also have the other side of Gary Graver. We were talking about this a little bit before we went live. Do you want to share the story behind how you got that and worked close with the family?
So Gary Graver was, if people don't know who he was the guy who shot The Other Side of the Wind, Orson Welles' last project, which was only recently released on Netflix. Gary Graver spent the last years of his life trying to get it completed, and he could not do it, unfortunately, before he passed away. And so he got to Hollywood, and he hooked up with Orson Welles, he cold called him, and he was his creative partner for the rest of his career, but he had to pay the bills. And he paid the bills by doing pornography. He directed a bunch. He shot a bunch. He shot all of Fred Olen Ray's most famous films. He worked with Al Adamson. So it was basically like high art of Orson Welles, where Orson Welles, like in interviews, said like he could not have done what he did without Gary Graver. And then the other side, it was like, considered by most as the trashiest of the trash. So we love Gary Graver. We did an episode on him on our podcast. And that's when his son reached out and said, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. We can't believe how deep you digged. And my co-host Will Sloan interviewed him. That's how we got contact. And we always wanted to do a Gary Graver disc, just like something dedicated to him.
Right.
But the Golden Ninja Video thing is like the thing needs to be in the public domain or the rights are very foggy. Basically, I look and I'm like, if it's been released a bunch of times on DVD and it's everywhere on YouTube, that is like the rights are all over the place. I consider it fair game because it's in public domain. And I couldn't really find one until I found a bunch of films that Gary Graver produced himself. And I reached out to his sons and they said, yeah, we'd be happy to let you release the films. Also, here's the transfer of our dad's first film, The Embracers, that has never been uncut. And we're like, sweet, awesome. And they also gave us a documentary Gary Graver did that they put up on YouTube many years ago in parts, but that was cut as well. And so you can find the uncut version on the disc.
Of course. And just, I love how organic that is, that they reached out to you and saw, that you were putting the love into that. And I'm curious, have you heard, was there any interest that was spiked after Severin started doing their Al Adamson stuff last year?
About Gary Graver? No. Yeah. You never hear, it's very confusing to me where, like Other Side of the Wind came out, you would think people would be like, who is this Gary Graver guy that shot the film? And it didn't happen. Like it's really unfortunate. I wish it was more. You'll see like articles here and there, a lot of them written by Will Sloan, the guy that does the commentary with me on the disc. But yeah, there wasn't that much interest for someone who had like one of the most fascinating careers as a cinematographer ever. Like what's interesting is like he directed a lot of pornography and he wouldn't fess up to it. He was embarrassed by it, even though the people loved working with him and he won tons of awards. Like when he passed away, it was wild how many like people in the adult industry came out and was like, Gary Graver rocks. I wish he had more attention. He really cared about what he did. So yeah, I mean, I wish he got more love and it's really a shame that he doesn't. Vinegar Syndrome has put out a bunch of his adult films on Blu-ray.
Yes.
But with no special features. It's like, what? Like, well, I want context as who is this guy? Why should we care? So that's unfortunate. Like, I think they did Indecent. I don't remember what I have it on my shelf. And they did one recently, which is like a summer camp thing. And I think they did Gas Pump Girls as well.
They did. Or someone else did, I think. But
or Garage Girls. It's one of those ones. Gary Graver directed it. And yeah, I mean, like, it's like begging to have context. Maybe they think people don't care. Like, I don't know. So, I mean, it's a decision that's made internally. So
awesome. So one of the things that I've always loved about Golden Ninja Video, and I'm going to go back to Sweet and Vicious Beauty to share this. So like I said, these are all limited edition, hand numbered. But the big thing for me is when you collect physical media, as obviously I do, and you do, look behind you as well, you fall in love with some of these things. You hold them in your hand, and they are essentially a part of you. We were kind of talking about that before we started live, too. And I could totally picture myself putting this much love into something just because I respect it so much. And, the fact that everything on an initial release gets a little booklet and you can see it is hand cut and stapled and high quality. It's not something that is shoddy. Just some of your materials. Can you talk about how you use or chose to use some of the highest goods? And
I'd be happy to talk about it.
If you're comfortable sharing how much one costs.
I'm always happy to discuss the manufacturing process because I can't find anybody talking about it. So I had essentially had to like wing it because I'm like, I don't know, like no one's talking about this. Like what programs do you use? All Blu-ray software is essentially discontinued. It's so I had to figure it out. And every step I'm like, am I doing this wrong? Because I feel like I am, because I can't find any guides to do it. So essentially the way that I do it is the discs themselves are Verbatim discs, which are like the most expensive ones that you can buy that you burn. Now, the one thing is, as a collector, people are like, I don't want burn discs. They're like, it's cheaper because I can do it at home. I want press discs. The thing about press discs is you need to make a glass master, and you need to do more than 1,000 copies for it to be worthwhile for a manufacturing to do it. I am not going to sell 1,000 copies, or if I will, it will be over a long period of time, and I do not have the room in the apartment that I have. Yeah. So that was the thing that I was worried about at first. But when I did research, people were like, no, like burn discs, as long as you do it like with high quality discs, they will have less errors than cheaper press discs. So, okay, so that was something off of my plate. The covers themselves, that was very complicated to figure out what they use. So basically what I use is 80-pound cover gloss. And that's a little thicker than usual Blu-ray and DVD covers. And the reason I do that is because I hand cut them. The thinner version, it chips the ink when I cut them. So I can't do that. I need something that's a little bit thicker when I do it. And the cases themselves are the Elite cases, which are like the top shelf, like the best you can get when it comes to case stuff. And I think that's pretty much it. And the paper I just do on a laser printer. That has that bums me out a little bit. I know they mean it nicely. They're like, oh, it's very homemade because it's on like black and white stuff. And it's like, I do the best that I can. Like it would not be financially feasible to do it like on, you know, like the more glossy paper that you see in like aero sets and stuff like that. Right. And even though, and like I do all the graphic design on the stuff, I'm not a graphic designer. I hate doing that stuff. So like even like laying that stuff out, I'm like, oh, in pain as I do it, trying to do my best. And the only way I was able to get through so many releases is when I did it at the beginning, I picked a template. So like they all kind of look the same on the back. So I can like play with that template with colors and stuff like that. And that way I know there's a baseline. So I'm not tackling it anew every time where I'm like, oh my God. That's why like all the menus look the same, all the back. And like, it's also like branding. I think it's fun to like see similar stuff every time.
Of course. Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I went about it with that. And do you have any other questions of how I do it or?
The biggest thing is I was certainly not talking down on it. The best part is it is relatable. The biggest thing for me is I can pick up a Sweet and Vicious Beauty and think logically, like I can see how he got to this. Like if I was pouring my time and energy into this, I could see how I would essentially be able to do the exact same product and not be out of my league necessarily. And not that it's negative, but this is, I mean, first of all, this is a movie that most people never would be able to see.
No, it's on Amazon Prime though, but no one was looking for it.
Exactly. Not in a way that gets ownership, nor has a commentary. And you're not going to be able to find that on Amazon Prime. You're not going to be able to find these. Exactly. The big thing, let's see, the Jackie Exploitation set. So this thing is chunky. There is so much on here. How many full-length movies are there again? Is it 8 or 6?
I believe it's 10, but it's 13 with the hidden features.
With the hidden, yes.
Yeah.
So there is so much on here, and this was just barely more than one of the other limited editions, correct? It was like 15?
No, it was actually 22 because it's a little bit more than those because of the price of the discs. And because, like I said, that it's like... every disc is like its own disc. So like if I was selling it on its own, it would be like $35. You pick them up all individually. Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize with those press discs, comparing them to the burn discs, if you go to somebody like Universal and they're putting out press discs for some, B tier movie that came out in 1997 with Jean-Claude Van Damme, they are paying literally pennies and trying to get the cheapest price for these discs. And these discs, as you can tell, they feel nice. They feel substantial. They are obviously high quality.
I used to use different discs earlier on, and I would get issues with people. And ever since I started using verbatim, no issue. Very rarely have I gotten. I can't even think of the last time someone messaged me and was like, "This disc doesn't work." It being like a disc error because they're made like they're like Data Plus as well. Like they're supposed to last for like 30 years, 40 years or something like that. So.
And let's see. So about yourself, how long have you collected physical media? Has that been a whole life sort of situation?
Definitely since I started getting into movies. I bought some VHS and it was into DVDs right away. All the classic cinephile stuff like Quentin Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs is coming out, the 2 special editions, Pulp Fiction. And from there, I've always been a physical media fan. I've always been very broke until probably the last 10 years when I've had some jobs that I could afford to get stuff or I just know people. Like I worked in a video store for a long time, so I could get stuff at cost as well. So And now I do a podcast called the Base Video Podcast where we talk about most of the new movies that come out every week. So I'm buying even more because I'm like, ooh, what's this? And we are in a golden age of physical media now. It has never been better to be a fan because they've realized that like we're not going to print 100,000. Let's focus on the best product made by people who actually want to put it out, and that's like heaven.
I agree fully. I just put out a video last week actually where I compared what we are doing today, which is literally we're able to compare cost on releases for movies that came out in Italy in 1973 across multiple websites and multiple distributors compared to, 1992 when you were sending away self-addressed stamped envelopes for bootlegs and hoping you got them in 8 months.
In Ontario, it was like it would get seized at the border because we had very strict censor laws. Right. That's before my time, but I remember reading in zine stories of them being like, we can't get these movies. They were seized at the border. They're like, it's offensive, and they just like sent it back or even tossed it out. And now there's so much that's available to us, and that is amazing. Are you a 4K man though? Are you getting the 4K? Oh yeah, I'm not touching that, which makes me very happy because I see these announcements of like Halloween's coming to 4K, and I'm like, I got the box set. I'm good. Don't need to touch that.
I was skeptical, but it is ridiculous how close it can get to a genuine cinema experience. It is so good. Some of these movies, do you mind sharing like some of your favorite movies of all time?
Oh yeah, Dawn of the Dead. George Romero's Dawn of the Dead is my favorite movie. Army of Darkness. What's my top 10? I have it written somewhere, but I always go. Somebody asked me, "What's your favorite movie of all time?" I was like, "Dawn of the Dead, 1978." That's my favorite. No contest.
So obviously, from Second Sight in the UK, we got.
I have that box set, not the 4K version though. I got the Blu-ray set.
And that 4K, it shows things that you were never able to see on home media ever.
I want to see it. It was never meant to be seen that way.
I agree. On top of that, there are certain titles that it can be a little off-putting. It's got that soap opera effect, or a lot of people complained to that first release of Halloween where you can see Michael standing in the closet before you were supposed to see him.
Really?
Oh yeah, because the blacks are so clear there.
But I feel like Carpenter's like, yeah, you weren't supposed to see it that way. It was like, we even talk about when it was like 1080p when they did the Star Trek remasters, and you see like every makeup line because that's not the way the show was originally meant to be watched.
Which Dawn of the Dead, famous for its great makeup, right?
It's going to be like the man with the X-ray eyes. Like you'll keep looking. It's like better and better until it's like, I see God. Man was not meant to see this.
And now we're getting all 4 of the first Star Trek movies in 4K, and everybody's going to complain once again.
Oh, always. You wouldn't be a collector if you weren't complaining in some way.
That is seeming to be true of the community every single day, more and more.
Scary.
So one of the releases here that I have is Unlucky Stars. You brought up, you want to talk about how you got that one. You want to share a little bit about that one?
I've been a fan of the stunt people, and a bunch of them made Unlucky Stars since I was a teenager. They were like on the internet doing shorts. I saw their movie Contour, which I love. And what ended up happening was my friend Peter Kaplowski programs for Midnight Madness at Toronto International Film Festival. And he showed me a screener of a movie called The Man Who Feels No Pain, a Bollywood picture. And I was like, oh man, is it going to have like, India has a very specific style of action that at the time I was not a big fan of. And he's like, no, it's different. And I watched it. I'm like, oh, this action's good. I wonder, did they get a different team or something like that? And so he ended up finding out it was a stunt people guy who were called to India by the director to choreograph the action. And they came down to Toronto when the film premiered. And so I hung out with them because I'm hanging out with my friend Peter, and we just chit-chatted throughout the, that night when it premiered. Great time for both of them. And later on, I was like, Unlucky Stars never had a Blu-ray release. I wonder if I could does he remember who I am? He did. And he was like, sure. Yeah, you can release Unlucky Stars. Wow. And that's how that came about. Just another like cold call email. He had been burned by a distributor really badly. And the deals I make with the filmmakers are essentially like, listen, I'm going to put it out on Blu-ray, 500 copies. Usually it may be more in the future, but it was 500 at that time. You own the film. I do not own the film. So if you want to put a different Blu-ray out when mine's out, you can go ahead. It's not no skin off my back because I make them on demand. So I'm not committing to 1,000 copies that will then sit in a warehouse. And I'm like, what? No, what are you doing? What's the movie? So, it's up to them, and they get paid as they get sold as well. So usually a big rush right from the get-go. And then I pay them whatever's up to then. And then usually at the end when it's sold out, or if it takes longer than that, like a little bit more through there.
So, and this disc, by the way, we were talking about each disc being stacked. This is literally, it's got a commentary track. You're on it with the writer, director, and star, Dennis Ruel. Is that how you say his last name?
Yep.
And then you got an interview with him, the making of it, a tribute to Hong Kong's golden era, deleted scenes, meeting the stars, and there's more. And like you said, there's always something hidden on there usually.
Yep. I believe the one hidden on that is a conversation where he talks about the horrible distribution that he had. Yeah, there's a fun one on that where I talked to him for like 30 minutes just about his entire career, where I like to like do like one-on-ones and be able to like, talk about, because they never had these like long career spanning conversations. And that one, there were some special features that he had already produced for that he had never been able to use. So I was like, I'll get those, but I'm also going to make more because I don't want to just like repackage something somebody else has done. So that's why I went about that.
For sure. This is actually something I had somebody ask before this one too. Do you have any plans to release public domain TV series or creator-owned TV series?
Not any plans of that. I don't have enough familiarity with that because a lot of it is much older, so I wouldn't have caught it in syndication. And that is also something that is like real tricky. So I don't know, maybe it's something like really caught my attention. I was like, I got to talk about this. I mean, we did, our second release was the Three Stooges one. And that one was interesting because a lot of the shorts that we put out were already available on Columbia sets, but they're the infamous public domain Three Stooges shorts. So we did not use those transfers. We used our own public domain transfer, which I took from a bunch of discs, but I also included a bunch of stuff that was like TV Three Stooges stuff. We have like a miscellaneous Stooges thing that we did. That's like, I think it's like an hour long. You can watch it all as one and we do commentary over all of it.
That, I've had somebody else that bought that release that told me that I missed out primarily on that disc because it was so much fun just to go back and see the stuff that they've seen so many times, but just share of the else that they had growing up, and then they could feel that. And that's one thing through each of these releases you can tell. And going with this question, actually, it fits perfect. Is you can tell that this has Justin written on every single title.
Oh, I mean, I'm on every title. Like, if somebody hates my voice or my energy, it's like, oh man, I feel really bad for you if you're watching the special feature.
Please don't buy anything.
Yeah, don't buy it. Like, you're not gonna like it.
Exactly. These are fantastic. But one of the main things is you have some new stuff coming. I'm going to share the Indiegogo right here. And why don't you tell us what you were raising money for here?
Sure.
You had a $15,000 goal, and you've already met it. But you, from what I hear, are going to have some stretch goals coming too.
Yep, indeed I will. So the main thing that we're doing is a remaster of Freaky Farley. So I've released 2 Matt Farley and Charlie Roxburgh films, which are filmmakers I love. They're the best. We actually co-wrote a book on them. And because they're filmmakers, I don't want to go into the whole spiel if people listening to this have never heard of them. You can,
absolutely.
But they are filmmakers who've been making movies since the 90s and essentially for themselves with their friends and family. And they've never gotten any distribution. They've always released the stuff themselves. It's great. It's like nothing else you haven't seen. It's personable, super charming. Matt Farley is most famous now for having written 20,000 songs, but he is also an amazing movie maker with his pal Charlie Roxburgh. And so I've released 2 of their films, but they shot 2 films on 16 millimeter in the 2000s. And I was like, ooh, can we release maybe those at some point? And the problem with Freaky Farley is, Charlie said they never did a high-def scan. So basically they shot the film, they scanned the negatives in standard definition, because why would they do, I don't know, could you do a high-def scan at that time? He edited the film in from that standard definition digital copy, and that's what they released. So the issue, and the reason like the goal is actually so high, is that they're going to have to scan the entire negative of the film, which I think is like 180 minutes or something like that. So they didn't do that many takes for like a 90-minute movie, but that's still a lot to like scan.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I wanted to do the crowdfunding campaign. The second movie on the list is Skip Tracer, which is an amazing Canadian film. And we actually played a 35 millimeter print of it through a screening series I have called the Laser Blast Film Society. And I don't know why it never really came out. It's always kind of baffled me. And I found out just nobody ever asked, because I reached out to the director and was like, hey man, can I put this out? He's like, sure. I like gave him my deal that I give filmmakers. He's like, I would love to. I'll do the commentaries, no problem. You go ahead with it. So I'm really excited about that because I have a 4K scan that I'll be doing of that. Not releasing it in 4K, of course, but that's a good place to start to then do a 1080p version. And so I also have a Taiwanese film that I'm super excited for. and I'm not saying the title because I love to keep things secret. And also, I'm always terrified something will go wrong. And like,
Of course.
so I'm getting the print from somewhere else. And it's like, what if it's bad? What if it's broken? I have backups of other Taiwanese action films, but the main one, oh man, I cannot wait to put it. I'm so excited. And it has an amazing title too. So it's one that when you just see the title, you're going to be like, ooh, I got to see that. So that I'm excited for as well.
That's what got me on one of the first things we were talking about before we went live. One of the titles that got me into this is available now through what you were calling the out-of-print bonanza. So if you missed out on all of the Gold Ninja Video titles that were out before, here is the list of everything that is currently available again. And the one I had mentioned to you that I had heard about before finding out about you at all is Holy Virgin versus the Evil Dead. You want to tell anybody about that movie?
So Holy Virgin versus the Evil Dead, number one, what an amazing title.
Amazing
Number two, co-stars Donnie Yen in his fallow period when he was making cheap jack martial arts film, mostly in Taiwan and the Philippines. Number three, it's a crazy wire work, guts get ripped out. There's tons of nudity as well, super colorful. Yeah, it's just a blast. And I was super happy to put it out. That's one that there's actually a high definition version that's floating around on the internet now. And people are like, are you going to reprint it and do it in high? I'm like, I am not touching that. Like, that is no, because I don't take high, like if there's remasters, I'm not touching them, even if it's like a gray market thing. And I did learn you cannot copyright a transfer. I learned this from the head programmer of MoMA. If a film is in public domain, you can't copyright. But that's like I don't want to do that. Like that's so like underhanded, and I really don't want to step on anybody's toes with these releases. Right. So for like example, the Ninja Vortex one, I did a bunch of Godfrey Ho films. I didn't want to put out anything that companies still had in print or had done remasters of. Like that was really important to me that like there's a German company that does Blu-rays of Godfrey Ho films and DVDs. Like I'm not touching any of those, even though some of them were the canonical titles, because like I don't want to like rip off. I don't want to be a bootlegger. So like, yeah.
And that's a big difference. A lot of people, when they hear burn discs, the first thing they think is bootlegger. And it's really not the case with something like this.
Well, I always say, like, if someone says, those are bootlegs, I'm like, listen, you can watch this movie on YouTube if you want. You can click right now and watch it. Like, I may have found, like, the best quality version of it, but what you're paying for is the special features. Like, that's what it is. And, like, curation. That's what the $12 goes towards. And, like, the manufacturing of the disc. So, yeah, that's what you pay for. The movie itself, the filmmakers aren't making any money. So, it's not like I'm going to give any to them. So, that's what you're paying for, not the movie itself.
And just like I focused in on this part on the Indiegogo for a reason. The scans on these things, they are not cheap. And a lot of people do not understand this side of the business. Do you want to go in on how much goes into a scan, how much that costs?
Yeah, it can be like $4,000 to $6,000. It's really expensive. And this is usually like a 4K scan that you want to do, or a 2K scan. You can do a flat 1080 scan, which is cheaper than that. And I could do that, but like some of these movies, like me doing this may be the last time that anybody touches those. So I may not always buy the 4K scan because I'm not releasing it that way, but I'll get like a 2K scan, and you want to do what's called a wet gate, which is that you run the film through water, which actually removes scratches and stuff. So that costs more. And I also am going to pay the person that scans it to color time the film, because like some of the prints may have gone red, or like, especially like the Taiwanese stuff, because it came out of the 70s, were really, really cheap materials. So, and the guy that I'm working with has really good equipment. So he's able to like make it look as good as it can, pull out all that information. And that's important. Like, they're not going to be, I'm not going in and like removing every speck and hair on these things. And I should specify that. Like, AGFA did a bunch of scans of films. Like they did The Sword and the Claw. And so that is kind of like still a beat up print. Like we're not scanning the negative or anything like that. So they're probably going to look similar to that, but that is, I think, like a high definition, high quality, almost grindhouse without being like completely damaged quality. Like that's good. That's what I want. And that's what I'm going for.
And it's important to see AGFA and like Vinegar Syndrome. They are literally both known for archiving these reels. That most of the time they have the original elements. They are storing these.
Vinegar Syndrome, I believe that they say they won't do anything that's not the negative anymore.
Correct.
I can't afford to do that. So,
and those, from what I hear, are crazy money. Like Bill Lustig, when he did Maniac and had that blown up from 8mm up to 16 or 35 or whatever to have it scanned, that supposedly was like 2.5 times the budget of the entire movie.
Yeah, it's very, very expensive. And it should be pointed out, Vinegar Syndrome is a scanning house. That's how they can do all the
Literally.
stuff that they do. They do scans for other companies. So
Correct.
it is very cost effective for them to do it because they have the people in-house and the equipment, which allows them to get into that. I am fascinated by these companies where I'm like, how do you get started? Like, how do you get enough capital to like make these super slick things? I'm like, I don't know how. Like, how do you start that business? So literally, that's why it's so DIY, and I do it myself because it's like, what can I afford?
And
right from the get-go.
You've got people thinking that about you now.
Yeah, I mean that nobody asks the question, how can you afford to do this? They're like, oh, I can see how we can afford to do this.
But in all honesty, if somebody wanted to start with something like you did, how much do you think somebody needs to start on some of these public domain titles if they had a completely different niche they were going for?
So basically, what you need burners. Don't buy a tower; those are incredibly just a dedicated burning tower. You can buy. I actually have one on my desk, which is like actual burner that's disconnected and plugs in with a USB. So you could technically do it off a laptop if you wanted to. You can buy it at like, where did I get this one? I think I got it at it was only like $100 and it came with the burner itself and the case. So you could get that. And you could also, you need probably an inkjet printer because that's what I do the discs on. And so you get, make sure you get a high enough quality. And even those are really tough to get now because they don't really make them anymore because people don't need them.
It's true.
And like the only issue, I wish I could have covers that were as slick as like what you would expect for a normal Blu-ray, but those are giant machines that build them that I learned. Course. So you can't really get them. You can buy a $5,000 machine that is gigantic and will do one at a time really slow, but it kind of doesn't look that good. But they're waterproof. That's the thing. Like Sub Rosa has a machine like that. If you buy any of their burn discs, that's what they have that they do it with. But people seem to like the colors and stuff on the ones that I do. So yeah, burner, printer, and a computer. That's really all you need. And the problem is software as well, is that the software that you would have to utilize is very expensive. It's usually like a yearly or monthly fee. It's called Scrivener. It's super expensive. But a lot of people that I know, including ones that do professional discs for companies, use an out-of-date versions of Adobe Media Encoder, or what is it? Encore, it used to be called, which Adobe doesn't support anymore. And it still works. So if you have a copy on your hard drive, you never deleted it, and you are a loyal Adobe subscriber like I am, because I do Premiere and all that other stuff, you know, maybe it's still on your computer and you're using it to make the discs.
Works perfectly. I love it.
Yeah, no issues. It syncs really well with Adobe Premiere because it's made to like read all the because I do all my Blu-ray encoding through Adobe Premiere because you can set like bit rates and stuff like that. And like that's another big thing is that when you encode the discs is to make sure like if you look at like an alpha video disc and you flip it over, you'll see that like half the like only half the disc is used. You'll even see that on like big companies, because I remember I was looking at I think it was a Warner Archives disc and I flipped it over and I was like, they only use half the disc. And I make sure that like it fills up the entire disc when I do it. So that's another big thing.
And it's obvious when you're picking these up, again, the quality is top notch. You can literally, just by holding it, tell that somebody is putting love into something like this. And again, Unlucky Stars probably would not see the light of day if somebody like you did not pick this up. Because
like basically the movies that are released from indie directors are the movies that I direct myself, which are like, people look at them and they're like, they didn't spend that much money on it. And it doesn't matter how entertaining or how much they like know how to make movies. They're just like, it's too much on a low budget level. We'd rather have something that looks higher budget, but is boring. And it's like, why? So, but I could swoop in and grab those films and release them. So like I did Unlucky Stars, A Sweet and Vicious Beauty, which is like a period slasher martial arts film that one guy made. The Matt Farley films, and like the new one, Dinosaurs in a Mining Facility, which I just put out, which I'm very excited about.
Look at that. Nobody else has it in their hands yet.
I literally put it together today, so they'll be shipping out tomorrow. The covers took 15 days to get here after I ordered them. They're like, we don't know where they are. I'm like, what? I literally had to order another order express, and I got the second order before I got the first one because I'm like, this is taking too long. So
I love the color scheme on that one. That looks great.
Yeah, this is all the covers are done. Principally, they're all original art by Andrew Barr and Lee Young. And they're actually partners. They live in the same apartment. And yeah, Andrew Barr is awesome. And if anybody watching this needs their him to do need art for anything, yeah, contact Andrew Barr. He'd be happy to do it. For money, of course.
That is a good sort of segue into one of the questions I was given beforehand. Is somebody that was listening to your podcast wanted to hear how you got into filmmaking.
I'm I mean, I love movies, so I just started making movies, and nobody's going to give me the opportunity to do it. So I had to pick up a camera and get my friends to get together with no budget and do it. And that's pretty much it. And that's still how it remains. I have a camera sitting on the desk behind me. Like I literally posted a commercial, me and my pal Mark, who hosts another podcast we did on Monday. We shot it in the video store where he works at. So yeah, it's just like literally just get it and do it. No one has ever given me money for it. Like no one has been said like, I am funding this movie. So yeah, if you don't do it, nobody else will.
And the important thing is it's easier now than literally ever.
The issue is just like getting people to watch it. And this is the thing I should note about like the boutique Blu-ray company that I did. I didn't do it for a long time as well, is that like I knew nobody was there to watch them. Like I could make it and be like, it's online to buy, and nobody would buy it. But I had done a podcast and I knew what my listenership is. So I was like, I could sell 100 of these, maybe. And I did. So that was great. And it's been, going up since there.
All of them that I've seen so far, because I missed out on the first few, have been at least 500 print run. Is that the plan going forward? And
yeah, they're all going to be 500 print run. I think maybe the remasters are going to be 800, 900. And they'll probably be like $20 because of like the extra cost that it costs to make them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they'll probably be around that print run. If I do remastered versions and they sell out instantly, then I'll be doing 1,000 and they'll be pressed. But I'm not at that point yet. It makes no sense for me to do that yet. But yeah, they'll be 800, 900. And I do it for a number of reasons. Number one is especially like the ones that are gray market stuff. I do not want them to dominate the market as a thing that's always there. So I just wanted them to go. Also, if they are limited print run, it's, fear of missing out. You're like, I got to get it and I want to do it. Also, I cannot keep that many Blu-rays on my shelf or even like you can see the corner there. I have like a filing folder with all the different covers and the booklets that I keep organized, that in case I need to make them, I go and get them. So it's all about space. If I had a big office that I could make it in, it would be different. I could have boxes of Blu-rays collecting dust in the corner unsold, but I'm not there yet. So yeah, I can't do it that way.
Hopefully everybody can go out there and purchase 3 or 4 to make you buy a new place.
Oh, that would be great. I would love an office that I could like literally go to work. I could have maybe a film scanning machine there. If I ever get any prints or anything like that, a dedicated computer to burners. I worked in the film industry for a while, and I worked at like a production office that was someone's house. They had enough money to have a manager, 3 employees, and they had like burners in the basement, and they had one film they were repping at film festivals. One film! And I'm like, how did they get this? And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the secret code is, so I literally have to do it myself. And I always have.
Speaking of buying stuff, I'm going to share what the website looks like. If anybody's ever interested, please go to goldninjavideo.com. And this is, everything ships out of Toronto, so be prepared for Canadian shipping. Is not too high still. Completely reasonable in my opinion. Here's the brand new one he just shared, Dinosaurs in a Mining Facility. If you could you share some of your most, what you would recommend to everybody titles that are still in print?
That I would recommend to everybody. So I would probably say, I mean, if you're a filmmaker, like you want to get all those director's cult releases because they are like textbooks on like how to make movies, how to do it. And they're all a little bit different. I would definitely recommend the Matt Farley ones because those are great. And it's like a door into a world, especially Local Legends, because that is a movie that is about Matt Farley's life and making movies. It's great. It's super great. So I would definitely recommend Local Legends. Then we see Local Legends, you're going to get Don't Let the River Beast Get You. And as far as, let me see what's still in print. I'm just going to check right now. Definitely Jackploitation. Because that's one that I love. It all depends on what people's tastes is. Because like I'm, I want to try to do like different sectors of stuff. Because I know like not everything I'm going to release is going to be for everyone. So I have like different levels where like the indie films are a particular, kind of thing. Then I have like the older Paul Viro stuff. That's more a classical film fan. And then I have the wacky Taiwanese martial arts stuff that hits like another kind of sector. So it all depends on like what your passions are. Kung Fu Wonder Child. I love Kung Fu Wonder Child. That's a great one. It's a great disc too. The Lucky 7 bonus feature, you will watch children die doing martial arts in that bonus feature. I mean, I would definitely recommend Impossible Horror and Teddy Bob. Those are great pictures. That director, he knows his stuff. Because that's me.
Speaking of, I have a copy of Impossible Horror right here. This one is, I believe, what the first one I got from there, but let's see. The Kung Fu Wonder Child is the one I'm looking at right now. I do have that one coming, I believe, still. And there is, what was the other one? Oh, I was going to say everybody should be getting the Gary Graver set.
Yeah, that one, the problem with Gary Graver is that like some people watch the movies and they're like, well, these movies are not good. And it's like, all right, like some of these discs, like and it's tough to make people understand sometimes, which is like the other side of Gary Graver, there's a reason it's not the title of a movie, and it's because it's about him and his career and like all the different facets of it. And there's just so much in that Gary Graver disc too, that you get to explore in multiple ways. Like we did amazing audio interviews with like his biographer, who the book hasn't come out yet, two co-authors of who have also written a lot about his stuff, including one of the actors, Jewel Shepard, who's in Return of the Living Dead as well, that knew him and was in a bunch of his movies. We have his first film. We do commentary on it. There's a conversation I have with Will Sloan about his work as a cinematographer. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on this disc. So if you're interested, and come on, if you're a cinephile, you should be interested in Gary Graver. Yeah, I would recommend picking this disc up.
And it is what I've called before as a contextual disc. You're going to get a lot of context from this disc.
Mm-hmm. That you otherwise wouldn't. Like other stuff, like I know that my co-host Will Sloan, his favorite disc that we put out is Bela Lugosi Meets a Brooklyn Gorilla. And that movie's not good, but I mean, I've learned to love it because it is so much fun. The commentary we did was great. The comedians in that, we are fascinated by Sammy Petrillo, who was like a Jerry Lewis impersonator, who his Dean Martin was Duke Mitchell, who would go on to do Masker Mafia style. And they're in Bela Lugosi Meets a Brooklyn Gorilla. We even went out of our way to get a record that Sammy Petrillo made that it was available nowhere. It wasn't even on YouTube. It's a prank call album. We recorded all of it, and you can find it on that disc.
Amazing. And now with the Indiegogo, you can get that disc again. This is the perfect time to fall in love with Gold Ninja Video.
Yes. If you are somehow very wealthy or have come into cash, or you can sell your goods to get cash, yes, give me all your money. There's a $1,000 tier right there for you. So I call it, in my notes, it's written Angel Investor tier.
That's perfect.
It has not been taken yet.
I was about to say, I hope somebody takes you up on that. The other one I was going to highlight, I think it's one or two. Oh, at the bottom. Oh, I already passed it. That's why. Personal Space Invader. This one always looks hilarious to me. I still don't have this one. I believe it's on the way. If not, I need to get this. But
I don't know if it says it in that, but that's one that I worked on. I co-star in the movie, and it was made as a bet that the director of it, I was really depressed about Teddy Bomb. It wasn't done yet. And he's like, come, let's shoot a film in 5 days. I will cast it. We will basically improvise it, and we're going to make the movie. And we butted heads making that movie. Because essentially he was like, let's just shoot the shit. I'm like, no. We need to do the Sam Raimi camera move. It needs to be too complicated. He's like, why are you trying so hard? So, yeah. And there's a really fun retrospective interview on the disc where we kind of talk about that, where it's like, we're really good friends still, but like we did not creatively at that time, like get along. Like he was almost embarrassed of making a movie. Well, I was like, all right, let's go in on this. Like, let's do more than 2 takes. And so, yeah, that one's, I think it's super fun, that movie. And what's really cool about that one is the director of that film, essentially he's like Justin co-directed Personal Space Invader. He's in it. He did all the camera work. He edited it. He dubbed it. That was his. He went and did a second one all on his own. That's like pure him that I do like a cameo in, and it's on that disc as well. So you can see like the 2 sides of that.
So if you're liking Justin's energy, that is the perfect release to pick up as part of your package.
Mm-hmm.
So the other big thing is, could you tell everybody about your podcast, what that's all about, what you go into?
Yeah, so I do a podcast called The Important Cinema Club, where me and Will Sloan, each week we pick a topic. It's very like auteurish focus, as in like we look through usually one figure, like their creative work. We pick a couple movies and we discuss it. We treat it as more or less an introduction to that subject, hoping that we will get people interested and find information about stuff that they wouldn't know. Usually the bulk of the episode is about 20 to 25 minutes. So it's not like a 3-hour discussion about something. And we do it that way because we want people to not be afraid of it, to be like, oh, I don't know who this is, but I'll listen to it. Like maybe it'll be interesting. Maybe I'll be introduced to something. And we try really hard to be like, all right, like we're doing an episode on Tom Cruise. Then we're going to do a Hungarian filmmaker that doesn't get talked about anymore. And then like next week, we're doing an episode on guys in gorilla suits.
And that's why, just like looking through the catalog for Gold Ninja Video, it's always nice to see somebody that is well-rounded, because you can't just get yourself stuck in one genre, which a lot of these physical media collectors, they do nowadays.
Horror films.
They're stuck on.
That's what sells.
Sadly, it's true. I mean, people, it's not made in the 70s or 80s or made in Italy. No, I don't want it. But there's so much other gold out there.
I feel that like there is an audience hungry for like special feature laden martial arts films. And and the companies in North America are just waking up to that, because it's happening in the UK right now with Eureka and 88 Films, where like people love the Jackie Chan stuff, and now it's finally coming. Like that is the next niche that's going to be hit, and I feel like the market will not be flooded, but there'll be more of those. But I'm fine, because I'm way at the bottom, getting like that gutter trash that I'm picking up and going like, no, remaster this.
And I would not be surprised if over the next year and a half, like you're talking about, it is a huge influx, because Arrow just announced that Shaw Brothers Shaw Scope coming out in December. 88 Films is now moving to the U.S., and they've already announced the Chinese Boxer coming in the U.S.
Something that like I started Gold Ninja Video too, because like I wanted to be hired by these companies. I'm like, just hire me to do. I'll do featurettes. I'll do commentaries.
Right.
And I am unhireable. They will not touch me. Like actually, we did the liner notes for Fist of Fear, Touch of Death, and I think there's something else that we did. And I've shot some featurettes for Vinegar Syndrome, but those were just like just go and film and ask the questions that we wrote, because they live in Toronto. But like I would love to do commentaries and stuff, and they're always like, no, we're good. So I'm like, come on, man.
I'm almost surprised they haven't reached out to the podcast to have you guys do it.
Never. Yeah, and we've reached out to some places and been like, hey, we've done an article on this person, we've done a podcast on them, we see you're releasing a film by them. Can we do like a commentary or something, or even like a video? They're like, no, thank you. We're like, we don't want to be paid. We'll just use this as, an opportunity. Literally, we get the thing that is the trash, like the worst thing to do, which is like, we just want exposure from it. And they're like, no, thank you. And
I can also see.
And those discs have no special features. And we're like, why? Like, we were right here.
For free, too.
For free.
I can also see you getting into doing location stuff, too, because you're up by where a lot of stuff has been filmed.
Well, that's why I say, like, I've done stuff for Vinegar Syndrome where they're very nice. I really like working with someone. They're like, can you go interview this person? And I've done just recently a bunch of interviews for them that's on an upcoming disc that they have not announced yet, and I cannot say. But yeah, so, I mean, I would love to do stuff for them. And no, I think they have their stable of people. And there may be like a worry, like if they branch out, that like, will that open the floodgates to like a million other people want to do stuff? So. And some people I've seen on forums are like, well, now he does Gold Ninja Video, they'll never hire him. And I was like, they weren't hiring me before.
Oh, man. So with the influx of stuff coming in for Taiwanese and Asian cinema as a whole, because one of the things, I believe Beijing just put out a law where they're going to potentially start censoring some of the old Hong Kong films. I mean,
the thing is, like, Hong Kong cinema and Chinese cinema is dead. It's under Chinese control at this point. So it's like, the only films that are kind of interesting that are coming out, at least that I've seen, are ones from like old timer filmmakers who are still going at it. But even then, like Chur Hark, unfortunately, who's my favorite, he's part of the machine now. Like he can only make mainly Chinese blockbusters, and they release movies all the time. And I go see them in theaters when they come out. And it's like, it's not very good. There's no personal touch. You can't anymore. Censorship is so strong.
Of course. And on some of these older titles, if they start censoring those, we're literally going to lose them unless we support physical media on some of these releases.
A lot of them are out there, but there's also some that like fall through the cracks and there's just no release. The fact that I can go and be like, ooh, I'm going to get a 35 millimeter print of that because it does not exist on DVD, and that I can do it, like that means there's a lot that are not like out there that will just be lost if nobody does anything. There's probably like a VHS full screen copy, but you don't want that the only version of a movie that exists.
That's true. And some of these old, the pan and scan releases and where people were choosing what to put out, it's no, there's no love in any of those.
No, not at all. It's just a quick buck. Like, let's put it out there, we'll sell it, and then move on.
And that's the thing. People hear public domain, and they just think bottom of the barrel. And in some cases, they're right. But however, in some of these, there's genuine merit in a lot of these movies. And one of the things that I proudly say on this channel all the time is that every single movie has been somebody's favorite movie at some point.
I love to say that. And Will's like, that's not true.
I guarantee it is. It might be the director. It might be the director that it was his favorite movie for 4 years. But still, there is enough that went into that movie that somebody should give it the time of day and respect and archive it.
Like, we did a disc on Frank Wisbar because I was just fascinated by him. We did a Poverty Row horror film called Strangler of the Swamp that was all shot indoors. And Frank Wisbar is a guy that, like, he made films for the Nazi Party before he, like, escaped to America to do independent film. He did the baffling Devil Bad's Daughter for Poverty Row Studio PRC. And he also did, and I can say this, if people are interested in the director, like, the whole disc is dedicated to the director. Found all the information about his career. That's what the commentary is about. I don't remember what the video featurette on that one is. It may be about something else, but all the movies are dedicated to him. And the hidden feature on that is one that is in public domain because Alpha Video put it out, but I could not find anywhere. It wasn't on YouTube, nowhere. And it's called The Prairie. And what's amazing about it is it's an outdoor Western about a long journey, all shot indoors. He built like a cyclorama, and in interviews at the time, he was so proud of it. He's like, movies will never shoot outdoors again because we have this technology. And all it gives it is like a surreal feel the entire time. And that's the hidden feature on Strangler of the Swamp.
That is amazing. And once again, now you can pick it up now as part of the out of print bonanza with this Indiegogo. So please go give some support to this. And by the way, we haven't talked about the price. It is absolutely affordable for this Indiegogo. You can get 3 titles that were out of print for $20 a piece, and then shipping from Canada, nothing. And you're getting titles that you have not been able to get. Some of these, the first one went out of print how long ago? It's been a couple of years, right?
Yeah, because I only did 125 and they sold out in like 3 weeks. I don't know if it has the right cover. So I did a reprint of those with like original Andrew Barr art, and that's what'll be on the cover. And I did a reprint and that sold out instantly as well. I was like, wow. The Dragon Lives Again is a weird one because it's the one that people ask the most about. And basically what I say is like, listen, that's a full screen transfer on that disc, and it's the best we could find. But like, I don't do full screen transfers if it's like a widescreen movie. Like, I'm very specific about it but that one was like, I gotta do it. Like, we gotta do it. And like AGFA, American Genre Film Archive, they own a print. Why aren't they putting it out? Just put it out. I've seen it on screen. So like, everybody who would message me about it, I was like, AGFA, I'm sure is putting it out any day now. So like, don't worry. And they haven't. They haven't. It's been years.
And the big thing about AGFA is they have literally thousands of prints. So many people don't realize that.
I wish I could be like, hey, AGFA, listen, I'm a little company. Like, you know, there's probably titles you're like, we're not going to make enough money on that. Right. Like, just why don't you give it to me? I'd release it.
And then lately they put a Vinegar Syndrome slipcover on it and sell 3,000 copies in a couple days somehow.
Yeah, and it's also $40 Canadian.
Right.
That's how much Vinegar Syndrome stuff goes for now.
The big thing about Vinegar Syndrome is they got the warehouse up in Toronto now. So
yes, they do. So they ship out from there, and they have like office workers and stuff like that. So yep, that's cool.
Genuine setup that you can get good customer service from. Gotta love it. And that shows physical media is alive and well. Again, I will bring up Golden Age.
Vinegar Syndrome, their business completely changed when they started putting slipcovers on stuff. Like, I've talked to the guys. We hosted the Vinegar Syndrome guys. We did a festival called What the Film Fest in Toronto, and they were like the main guests every time. So I spoke to them a bunch of times. And I'm always like, man, those slipcovers, they're like, that the fans love them. Like, they love them. You can charge more for them because there's slipcovers on it. And they look great. Like, I have tons of Vinegar. Look, I have one right here, one of the hardcovers of the Rene Cardona Jr. set.
So the last thing I had written down to ask about, which is unfortunate, that's an inevitable question nowadays, is there any way that Golden Ninja was impacted by COVID?
Actually, not very much. So basically, I thought it was going to be because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to get stuff. Like, it's going to be tough. But it wasn't. And it actually opened up that at that point, I hadn't really done stuff by Skype. And in that, like, 18 months, I did videos with people that I just cold called. So we just did it through Skype. Like, nice. I remember when I was going to put the Matt Farley discs out, I was like, I got to go to New Hampshire to where he lives and shoot stuff with him. I can't do it because of that reason. And I think that's great. Like, if you look at even Shout Factory discs, they just have Skype interviews now. Like, I don't need them to be professionally filmed. Like, I just want the person there. And I think that opens the access. And like, if you look at like their Event Horizon disc, there's like 30 like 30 new interviews. And I think that's only because they can do it through like electronic means. So it's been there hasn't been any change when it comes to that kind of stuff. I wonder, I had different plans of stuff that I wanted to do that I wasn't able to, but business kind of just continued on normally other than that.
have you seen, because I've had a couple other companies that have shared that they've actually seen an increase in sales. Have you seen any more exposure through COVID or anything like that?
Not enough for me to be like, wow, like I'm selling 1 million copies. Like,
right.
Since I upped it to 500, I've never been like, whoa, I sold out in 2 weeks. Because the thing is, like, I remember reading a comic book publisher saying this, which is, he's like, you don't want to sell out. Because if you sell out, then you don't have any more copies to sell. Like, that's an issue because you didn't calculate correctly. So, like, it's fun to be like, I sold out, but it's like, oh man, people still want this, and I get emails about it. So, 500 is a nice number that I feel I'll still get emails afterwards when it goes out of print. But like, most of the people that got it get it. Even though that happens to me all the time, where I'm like, ooh, I want this Blu-ray. Ah, it came out 2 years ago and I missed it. No, now it's going for $500. Come on.
And that is the perfect way to segue. Once again, go to their Indiegogo. The link is in the description. Any of those ones that have sold out, you can get that have been out of print. They will not be hand numbered. They will have different art potentially. There will be a different banner, but they are all available.
Yeah, and there's not going to be a booklet either, because that's one of the things, which I know it sucks. Like, I wish I could include that booklet, but like, I feel kind of like, I don't know, man, like just reprinting them. I'm like, but they were limited. Like, and I'm putting them back in print. Is it a ripoff for the people? So I got to do stuff a little bit different. Then, like, if you missed it, then like those people still have that thing. Yeah, the banner will probably say, I think it's gonna say, I haven't 100% decided on it yet, but like contributor or contributor special or something like that. And so, like, as Will Sloan pointed out, he's like, well, that's gonna be worth more than if it's a collector, because literally they could only get it through that.
Right. So if you want something that comes with everything in one of these releases, make sure that you're supporting Gold Ninja Video moving forward. There's tons of information in every single one of these releases. Justin, thank you for your time tonight. I want to say thank you. Man. Absolutely. Thanks for hanging out. If you want to come back anytime, I'd love to do like a live watch along on some old Taiwanese movie or something with you.
Sure. Even if you want me to come on and just talk about new Blu-rays and DVDs, I keep up on that. I have a podcast on it.
In the next couple of weeks, I'm actually starting a weekly show every Thursday for sharing news and information on upcoming stuff. So I will absolutely have you back on. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Thanks, Justin, again. And we'll see everybody soon. Have a good night. Everybody.